Hello and welcome back to the Speak Truly podcast. I'm your host, Kai, here with
Mitch
and Ryan.
And today we're talking about flat Earth.
Yeah, today we have we're very excited to have another guest on the podcast. And this time it's actually not someone from our immediate friend group, so we're also really excited about that. Today we have David Weiss from the Flat Earth podcast joining us. So give it up for David. Thank you for agreeing to come on.
Thank you, David.
Thanks for having me.
To give a little background before we let Dave kind of introduce himself. We run a social media Instagram page called Speak Truly, and someone from the Flat Earth podcast reached out to us and asked if we wanted to have Dave on. And me personally, I've never really given too much thought about the shape of the Earth, the size, dimensions, that kind of stuff. So I was like, what the heck, let's do this thing. So Dave, if you wanted to give a little bit of a background on who you are, kind of what you believe in, and then maybe just a little summary of what Flat Earth is all about, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, the thing is, nobody really thinks about the Earth. We've been brought up in a way where we're just told stuff about it, never shown any proof, and then we just believe. And because everyone else believes it, we all believe it. I mean, people do things because other people do them and believe them. So who am I? I'm just a guy. I worked in corporate America. I started my own company. After I left corporate America, I was doing a podcast on conspiracies, discovered the deception, the globe deception, the biggest conspiracy of all. And here I am now talking to, dozens of shows a week, trying to help the world see and figure out who they are and take back our freedoms.
Okay. Awesome. I think one of the biggest questions that we have, just kind of get the ball rolling, is why do you think the Earth is flat? Just like a general, I know there's a lot of evidence from what I've seen from you on your shows. I've listened to a little bit of some podcasts you've been on, and even some Into the Rabbit Hole, some videos on that. So what do you think? Why do you think the Earth is flat? I guess just beginning with.
Because every sense I have says it's flat and stationary. Every scientific measurement I do shows that it's flat and stationary. Large bodies of water at rest lay flat. On a ball 24,901 miles around, like they tell us it is, there is a curvature formula. And when you apply that formula, it doesn't work at all. We can see things that should be hundreds, if not thousands of feet below the curvature. Now with new telephoto infrared cameras, we could see even farther. We're seeing things that should be miles below a hidden curve. Sonar on submarines down near the bottom of the ocean can see another submarine 100 miles away. Well, there should be a mountain over 6,000 feet tall in between them, blocking them, but there's not. On the top of the water, a Navy ship can pinpoint another late Navy ship with a pencil-thin laser beam at over 100 miles. There should be a 6,600-foot hump of water in between them, but there's not. Airplanes fly straight and level over an Earth plane. No test for axial rotation or motion has ever been successful. They actually prove the opposite. Every star in the sky resets every year to the exact same space it was the year before, the decade before, the century before. Nothing is moving. So the question I have is, can you give me one reason that you think you live on a globe? And I'll give you a Bitcoin if you can come up with one.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Just one. I just gave you a whole bunch and I didn't even start.
Yeah, and I think I'm coming into this more because, like you said, just right at the beginning, especially after our first phone call too, what you had said just about what we grow up believing these things and don't really do our own research, and that's why I was honestly most excited to have you on, because I haven't done that much research on it, to be honest. And when confronted with the task of kind of giving evidence to around Earth, I struggle with that, and even with flat Earth too. So I'm kind of on the fence here, to be honest with you. I'm trying to go.
So here's the thing. There's a couple different types of people in the world. People that never looked and will never look, and they're globers for forever. There's people that never looked and like, all right, I'm interested. Now I'm going to look, but they look half-assedly, if you will. And their idea of research is, let me Google, is the Earth flat? All right. And or photos of flat Earth, and Google will deliver you pictures of a disc floating in space. Okay.
Mhm.
Which make absolutely no sense whatsoever. While I'm talking to you guys, I'm showing some pictures. You guys are doing an audio podcast. If you set your view at the top to speaker view, you'll be able to see my images better if you're having difficulty seeing them.
I see. Okay.
So that's one thing. And the other thing is, as you said, you never really searched into it. I'm gonna ask you guys some questions. I got them all wrong when I was asked, so don't feel bad, if you get them all wrong. How fast is the Earth spinning in the heliocentric globe model? I'm gonna give you the answer.
I think it's
1,000 miles an hour at the equator. 1,000 miles an hour. The speed of sound is like 700 miles an hour. So you're spinning faster than the speed of sound if you're sitting still on the equator. That makes no sense. You're also orbiting the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. You're chasing the sun at 500,000 miles an hour, and you're moving sideways at 1 or 2 million miles per hour. But when you go outside and look around, what do you see? You see nothing's moving, right? You feel that you're stationary. Science is a word. Science is a real thing. Flat earthers love science. We use science. Scientism says that the Earth is spinning. I used to think this was the coolest thing. So fast that that at the equator the water bulges 14 miles high. I thought that makes sense. The centrifugal force. How come Central Africa isn't underwater? There should be, if it's bulging 14 miles high, there should be a ring of water going right around the equator, but there's lots of land on the equator. The Maldives right on the equator are only like a foot or two above the ocean. There's no tides there. The tides are less than a foot. We have lakes that are perfect glass, mirrors of the sky. They're not moving. Like if you tapped your foot on the edge of the land there, it would send a ripple across the lake, right? Any motion whatsoever, you would see, you would see it on a body of water, but the lakes are perfectly still, when there's no wind. So that makes no sense whatsoever. So what is the flat Earth if it's not a disc floating in space? That's what they tell you in the Flat Earth Society. If you Google, you'll end up at the Flat Earth Society. That's a government-controlled disinformation site. Why are they promoting disinformation? Because they want you to laugh at flat Earth. It's called gatekeeping, right? So what is the flat Earth? The flat Earth is like a pond. Think about what a pond is. A pond is where water accumulates in the low spot in the land, and then the edge of the pond is just where the water is higher than the land surface. Well, we live in all of the oceans of the world form a giant pond. All of the continents are the islands. They're surrounded by water, but all of the water is surrounded by the highest land on Earth. Did they teach you that Antarctica is the highest land on Earth?
No.
Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. It is the shoreline of the world pond. What is beyond Antarctica? We don't know. It's off limits to everybody. In 1959, they came up, when all the other every country was killing each other, they came up with the Antarctic Treaty, and every country signed on. It says nobody, no corporation, no person, nobody for any reason whatsoever can explore Antarctica, period, until the year 2041. And we must protect the wildlife there, which is just penguins. And so much that we can't fly an airplane over it because the sound of the airplane might disturb the penguins' migrational patterns. And then we would lose the penguins forever. This is before environmentalism was even a word. But go ahead, deforest the Amazon, kill, start endless wars. That's fine. And so Antarctica's off limits. Why is Antarctica off limits? Because what's out there? Maybe there's extra territory out there, more land, extra terra, right? In the outer space beyond Antarctica, that would be extraterrestrials would come from there across the Earth plane.
Haven't there? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead.
No, I liked that picture you had, David. I hadn't seen that before, where we're just happened to be kind of the smallest ring.
We're in the center. We're in Middle Earth, if you will. Middle Earth.
Oh. But so I guess besides that government treaty, do you think there's like a bigger power at work keeping people from, like, if you're just a billionaire playboy who has a yacht and is able to just go down there, that like, is there some type of police force or government or some entity that would actually stop you and stop this kind of from being explored?
Yeah,
found out about?
Yeah, so the Antarctic Treaty, they don't have people, with their elbows linked going all the way around Antarctica saying no, you can't come in. But they can see, we have radar, we have satelloons. We don't have satellites, we have satelloons. And one I forget the guy's name, not Shackleton. The guy got a permit from his country to go down to Antarctica. Before he got to the shoreline of Antarctica, he was stopped by 2 Navy warships. They threatened to sink him if he didn't turn around. He went back home and he was arrested and jailed. So yeah, they're serious about not letting you in. Right.
Yeah,
And
sounds.
What is a satelloon?
A satelloon is what we're told that there's satellites, which are orbiting the Earth, falling around the Earth. So I showed you, I explained the patterns of, the motion of the Earth. It's twirling, whirling, and spinning and rocketing in 4 different directions. But somehow these satellites know how to fall around the Earth just perfectly. And they always remain exactly where they're supposed to be. And a geostationary satellite can stay above the same point on the land, and it knows how fast the Earth is spinning and rocketing and moving sideways and curving, but somehow it stays in the perfect spot. No, none of that makes any sense. That is pseudoscience made up by Arthur C. Clarke to program our minds. So a satelloon is just what you think it is. NASA owns all of the big helium companies in the world, and they're the largest consumer of helium in the world. They've created what they call the helium shortage because they don't want people having access to large amounts of helium, right? So they get these satellites, and they launch them on balloons that float over the flat Earth. There's tens of thousands of these things up there at any time. We've interviewed ex-Navy people or Air Force people that were on the balloon retrieval system, where they retrieve these in the air, they resurface them, and then they put them up again. They go up for more than a year at a time, each one. And they launch them from Antarctica. They can control them remotely to keep them over whatever area they want using the wind currents at different levels. There's counter-rotating wind currents above the flat Earth at different altitudes.
Are we able to see the satelloons? Is that something that we'd be able to look at from our perspective?
That's a good question. We've some people have filmed them transiting the moon, but those lights that we see in the sky that we're told are satellites, those very well could be the balloons, because those balloons are the size of football fields, right? But a satellite, like you're looking at right here, is smaller than a Volkswagen Bug, I would say, right? That would be a big satellite, the size of a small car. And the satellites are higher than the International Space Station. Think about this. A 747, biggest plane, one of the biggest planes we have. At cruising altitude, it's a tiny dot in the sky that you can barely see, right? At cruising altitude, right? Yeah. That's due to perspective.
500 feet.
Yeah, it's at 5,000. And no, 30,000 feet, 5 miles. Okay. So it's a tiny dot at that height. If you doubled the height, you couldn't see it. The angular size would be too small for you to see. At double the height. The International Space Station, which is about the same size as the 747, supposedly, is 50 times higher than that. 50 times higher. That would be impossible to see. Satellites are smaller and even higher. There's no way you can see them, even if they were lit up with LED lights. But they're not. They're not lit up.
Sure. So you think the International Space Station is up there? Like there's an actual object that's up in the sky?
Absolutely not. The International Space Station. Now, here's the thing. What are we seeing? I have the tracker, and I've seen it. I've seen the light come by. And I highly recommend that everyone, that you guys get, that you can get an International Space Station tracker on your phone and tell it to alert you when you'll be able to see it crossing over. And I've seen it.
I've actually done that before. I've seen it twice.
So what does it look like? It looks like a piece of the sun, basically. It looks as bright as the sun. It's like the brightest star, and it goes from horizon to horizon in just a couple of minutes. I mean, incredibly fast if it's at the height that they're telling us. And if you look at the International Space Station, when they do those spacewalks, it's not very bright. How come it's reflecting back to Earth that bright? And how can it move that fast? And the other thing is, how could we see it? Its angular size is too small. There's no way we could see it at 50 times the height of a 747 cruising at altitude. So what is it? It's a luminary. We don't know what it is. It's more in the form of a wandering star. The wandering stars are now called planets, but it's a light that orbits, that circles around over the flat Earth, just like all of the other lights do. Don't know what it is. Can't go up there. Can only speculate.
I guess one of the things that's interesting to me with the satellites and all that kind of stuff is, I guess, and this maybe is just a good segue for you to kind of address the topic, is just gravity itself kind of being the reason as to why you had mentioned like they fall in the exact right pattern, even though we're rocketing through space at these insane speeds. And at least to me, how it's been explained is gravity is this force that's able to kind of keep these orbits and keep these different bodies rotating around the Earth. And I guess kind of how do you kind of tackle that situation?
So did they teach you about planetary gravity and moon gravity?
I know very little. Yeah, not very much.
Here's the thing. They didn't teach you about that. Well, in the way I'm going to explain it, because I'm making it up, right? So I'm going to do exactly what they do. So in the heliocentric system, the Earth is falling around the sun because the sun's gravity, which is massive, is holding onto the Earth, and the Earth is just falling around the sun, and it's just doing this elliptical orbit around the sun, and it does it for millions and millions and millions of years, and it always stays perfectly like a clock, right? But the Earth holds on to the moon, and the moon's falling around the Earth. Even though the Earth is going spiraling around the sun, the moon orbits around the Earth, and the sun doesn't like the moon because the sun only holds on to planets. The planets only hold on to moons. Okay. There must be sun gravity and moon gravity, right? So what happens when the moon gets right in between the sun and the Earth? How come the sun's gravity doesn't rip it away, or at least perturb its orbit a little bit, right? You think it would. Logic would say it's right in line. I mean, the sun's not only holding onto the Earth, it's holding on to Mercury and Venus and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter and Pluto and Neptune. It's holding on to all of them, but it ignores the moon. Why would it ignore the moon? So here's the problem.
So,
good.
I was going to ask just a question. So, the moon doesn't. So I actually don't know about this. The moon doesn't move at all when it's in between the sun and the Earth.
No,
from what you've seen,
it does. The moon,
no
the moon is circles around the Earth every 28 days. That's what they tell us. Okay, and so it's always moving, but when it passes in between the sun and the Earth, how come the gravity of the sun? How come when it's coming around the Earth towards the sun, it doesn't speed up? And then when it goes away from the sun doesn't slow it down by tugging on it, right? None of this makes any sense. I see. Here's the thing. They make up all these theories, but then they can't model any of them. If you take the world's best supercomputer, you put a ball in it, say, all right, here's a sun, here's an Earth, put them in orbit, it works perfectly. You say this one's got this much gravity, this one's got this. It works like a perfect timepiece, and they could predict where it's going to be forever. Add one more body, a moon or another planet, into that system, the entire system falls apart, never repeats itself, and they can never predict what's going to happen next. The world's best supercomputer can't keep track of 3 bodies with gravity because gravity doesn't work like that. It's made up nonsense.
Well, that actually, I was listening to one of your guest appearances on some podcast where you're talking, what you just mentioned is the 3-body problem.
Yeah.
And I started to do some research on it because I thought it was really interesting and I had never thought about it. And what I found, I think, is that the 3-body problem, it seems like it's not that it can't exist. It's that there's no analytical closed form solution to determine the position of these bodies at any given point in time. Which I majored in mathematics at UNR, which is the college here in Reno. But I mean, I'm not like super good at math. I don't have like.
So here's the thing: math is a very useful tool for describing anything you want. You can have math describe. If you had 5 apples and I took 7 of them from you, would you have -2 apples?
No, not literally.
Okay, yeah. So I'm saying math can describe reality. It can also describe non-reality. For example, are you guys familiar with Aristophanes and the Greek mathematician that discovered the sticks and shadows guy, right? So Aristophanes, he's here in Said, and the sun is directly above him. He's got his stick, and there's no shadow. And his buddy, 500 miles away, they had a long string and a cup, I believe. They were talking to each other, and that before your time, you guys know about the string and cup.
Yeah.
So he had a stick straight up, and and Carl Sagan had taught us, on Cosmos, which is before your time, but he brainwashed everybody saying, he's got the two sticks, and he goes, it wouldn't work unless they were, and he bends the cardboard and it's like, unless they were on a ball, then this one, one would have no shadow. Well, that's assuming sun rays are coming in parallel, right? Assuming sun rays are coming in parallel. So, and why would anyone assume sun rays are coming in parallel when no one's ever seen sun rays come in parallel? But let's just go with it. So you can do a perfectly good, trigonometry and figure out the sphericity of the Earth. And Carl says that he got it within 2% of the actual size, So this is the most famous mathematician from ancient Greece that figured out the size of the Earth, and he was never mentioned in any books until the late 1900s.
Okay. So he was put there after the fact.
Right. But here's the problem. I don't believe he ever did it, but even if he did it, it doesn't matter, because on a flat Earth with a small local sun, he could be on this flat plane. His stick would have no shadow. His buddy's stick would have the same angles. You could do the same math, and you could describe this flat level plane as a sphere. Right? Same exact equation, same exact angles. So you're making assumptions with the stuff. It's just like the distance to the sun. It was made up on an assumption that Venus is the same size as Earth. I say Venus is the size of a basketball.
The thing you see in the sky is the size of a basketball.
I'm saying they say it's the size of Earth. I say it's the size of a basketball. You can't prove either one of us right or wrong.
I see. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's when you look up at the, in this, and by the way, looking up at the sky is really no way to prove anything, because the optics of the sky, especially if there's a glass dome, especially if space is water, like we believe it is, and there's lots of evidence showing it, it changes the way you see things when you look through water. Things change directions, things change size. It's not, you don't look up at the ceiling at the lights in your ceiling to figure out the shape of your floor.
Sure.
So you think that there's not
water.
Just a vacuum up there? There's water up there?
If there was a vacuum, why doesn't it suck all of the air off Earth? And I'm gonna read your mind.
Gravity.
Yeah. Right. Get a straw, point it downwards, and with the weak vacuum or low pressure of your mouth and lungs, see if you can suck air or water up and away from Earth. Could you do it? Of course you can. Easily, no effort. How does a vacuum of space not suck air off of water? You can go up to 10,000 feet, 100,000 feet, point your straw down, suck, and air and water will come up effortlessly, right? You're not even nearly anything to compare how strong the vacuum of space is. Vacuum of space should suck all of the air right off the Earth, but it doesn't, because space is not a vacuum. And we have I believe we have a dome over us. Can't prove it, but it sure seems that way.
And how high up is this dome?
Great question. So if you look at all the NASA rockets, SpaceX rockets, they shoot up, they go up 73 miles. No, they go up, they curve out over the ocean, and then they disappear. And we're watching a cartoon inside of a minute, if not from the first minute. And they don't go anywhere. But in Arizona, these guys shot up this rocket called the Go Fast rocket, and they gave us an uninterrupted view. Unlike NASA, if you watch their launches, there's 7 cuts within the first 15 seconds. Okay, it's just like a movie, because it is. But this thing went up and up and up. At 73 miles, it went kerplunk. It went into something. It sounded like water, but maybe it was like plasma. Maybe it wasn't as thick as water, but maybe it was frozen air, because the temperature was near absolute zero. And then it started floating weird. And here's the funny thing. All of a sudden we saw the moon, and the moon went by. It was a little dot in the sky, but it was the moon. Earth was looking pretty flat too, but the moon was over New Zealand at that time. Right? That's on the other side of the Earth.
Oh, from Arizona. Wow.
From Arizona. Yeah, so if the Earth is a basketball, they were like a millimeter or less over that basketball, and New Zealand's on the other side of that basketball. How did they see the moon?
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you have a link to that video? It's just, but we might want to just post that out for the podcast.
Yeah, I will. I'll try to find it. I know it's on the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, my app, which I'll tell people about. But that, if you Google Flat Earth, you end up with the Flat Earth Society. You end up with by man Dan, their hit piece guy who just does gaslighting, ridiculous, snarky videos about us. He'll never talk to us live because he can never answer anything that we have. He just makes up stuff, gaslights and straw man arguments us. But
yeah,
the app bypasses all of that. It gives you a daily video every day. It shows you. Are you guys familiar with my app?
Yeah, I actually
think
downloaded
Ryan got
your.
it. Yeah,
I downloaded your app before this just to check it out a little bit, and I watched some of those videos, and they're definitely interesting. I guess one more for our viewers, maybe because I have the app and I've kind of seen how it worked, but with the sun and the moon, how those work together. Sunsets, I know, are kind of another big topic of kind of trying to prove, as proof that the Earth is a sphere. Maybe if you want to address that some and kind of explain how that works on the flat Earth model.
Yeah. So the sun circles around the flat Earth, but depending on the atmospheric conditions, the way we see the sun is not a physical object that we see. I believe that the true source of the sun is outside of the dome, and we're just seeing a focus point in. But there's certain sunsets and certain conditions that you see that are just clearly going away from you and circling around over the Earth. They're not going down. They're just going down due to perspective. And so in the app, there's Where Does the Sun Goes videos. There's tons of videos showing you sunsets, then showing you experiments that we'd made models and show you how the sun appears to be going down, but it's actually straight and level. So like if there was a cloud deck, we have spotty clouds, how they all sit kind of on a deck above you. Cloud directly above you, you're looking up at that cloud, it's 5,000-10,000 feet in the air. And then you're looking out over the water, and 25 miles away, those clouds look like they're touching the water just due to perspective, right? They look like they're touching the water, but they're really 25,000, 5 or 10,000 feet in the sky, same height. So if I drew a line from my eyeball to that cloud 25 miles away over the water, I'm going to see that line parallel with the water all the way to the cloud. That's how I would see it, right? But if you were standing under that cloud and you can see the line that goes from that cloud to my eye, you'd see a line from 10,000 feet up in the sky that's sloping down to my eye, right? So I'm holding my arm up at a 45-degree angle, right? So the cloud's really up here, but I see it down here on the horizon. Okay, so it's up. So it's up there. Hold on. So that I got the clouds up there, and as the sun goes away, it just goes and eclipses behind those clouds. But the way my eye sees it is it just goes down due to perspective, and it sets. So
okay, so the sun is just disappearing behind clouds. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I call it the atmospheric deck of opacity, because even on a non-cloudy day, when you're looking across, let's say you're just standing at the edge of the water and you're looking across, even on a clear day, that atmosphere becomes thicker and thicker and thicker. It accumulates. It's like looking across a pool underwater, a 100-yard pool. You can't see the wall on the other side, right? Even the water's clear. The same thing with the air. So I'm standing there. I'm 6 feet above the water. I'm looking, and let's say it's 50 miles. The air becomes opaque. 100 miles, whatever it is. 50. Let's say it's 50 miles. If I went up 50 feet, I could probably see 110 miles. And if I went up another 50 feet, I could probably see up 120 miles, right? The higher I go, the thinner, the clearer the air is. So that's a atmospheric ramp of opacity. And when the sun just goes, it goes behind that deck of opacity. But due to perspective, we see it going down.
So if you could get up, if in that same situation, if you could also go straight up through this layer of opacity higher up where you can see further, would you, in theory, be able to see the sun for longer, or I guess completely?
Right there.
Oh, you're small. There you are.
Yeah, you can see the sun. You can see the sun. It just, when we send balloons up to 120,000 feet, the sun always looks like it's almost at the same height, maybe just a little higher. So again, the sun we all see relative to our own position. It's kind of it's like a reflection in a mirror. Imagine two of us were standing outside 100 yards apart and we're looking at a giant mirror, upright mirror, and the sun was setting behind us. Okay. So the third person walks up to the mirror and I say, see the sun right there. And they draw a circle around the sun with a Sharpie, right? Then they walk over to you, one of you, and say, where do you see the sun? They're going to draw a circle on that mirror 100 yards apart from my circle. But we're both talking about the same sun, but we see it in a different position because it's really a reflection. So how can a reflection actually, the sun's hot. Like how would a reflection be hot? So this is when I came to I'd always thought about that. And I'm like, well, maybe it could be. And I didn't really think about how to prove it. But I was at a conference in Las Vegas. I'm sitting by the pool. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. Sun's going down on the right side of me. And it was blasting on my face. It was like really intense. I'm like, I'm going to be toast on the right side of my face. And the left side's not going to be toast. I thought about going to the other side of the pool, but all of a sudden the sun lined up with the hotel was all mirrored, and it lined up with one of the mirrors perfectly. And the hotel is like 100 yards away, and I could see both suns, and they look the same. Of course, it's a mirror. But then I closed my eyes, and the reflected sun hitting the left side of my face. I said, if I didn't know which one was the real sun, could I tell? And I couldn't tell. They were both equally as hot. And one was a reflection. Maybe the other one is a reflection also.
So maybe I'm a little confused.
Here's one more thing to ponder about the way we see light and the sun and everything. Did you know, like on the middle of a sunny day, if you look up, can you see stars?
Not normally.
No. Did you know that if you drop down into a deep well and looked up, you could see stars?
Really?
Because the sunlight's out of the way?
Well, it's weird. It's just the way our minds propagate light in this system. This world is nothing like we think it is. Flat earthers do not know what this world is, but we know a lot more than globers do. We know that we're not on a spinning ball flying through an infinite space, in a space vacuum. Big Bang, everything exploded, nothing exploded, everything exploded, whatever. Then all of the rocky bits turned into spinning balls, and all of the gases turned into bigger balls and left a vacuum in between. How do you have a gas ball in a vacuum?
Gravity. I guess again, it'd just be the gravity answer.
Yeah, gravity. Cool. Yeah.
So maybe I just want to clarify one thing for myself.
Gravity.
On the app, you
bro.
have the he has the cool meme shades on. So on your app, do you think there's the sun's being reflected around, or do you think with the mirror kind of thing that you were talking about, or is there one kind of body outside this dome that is moving around? I guess that's the part that I'm a little lost on.
Yeah, I again, anything above our heads is speculation. So the way I see it is above the dome there is a source. What is that source? I don't know. Is it God? I don't know. Don't know what it is. And it's projecting into our system. And a simple experiment you can do is you can get a glass dome. They make little paperweight glass domes, and you put it down on the ground and you hold a pen light above it, and then you just move the light across, and inside the dome you'll see like this sun rise. It's like, it doesn't photograph well, but there's like a little ball sun in the dome, and then it goes away and it goes right down to the edge, and then it stops, and then it just fades out. And that's kind of exactly what we see. When I told you I put my drone up on a super clear, dry day, and in 5 minutes time, the sun went from pretty high up. It went down, 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 down. Now, if the earth was spinning, it would just keep on going, but it didn't. It went down, 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 and then it stopped right above what appeared to be a horizon, and it sat there for 10 minutes. And then I super sped this video up. I'm showing you, and instead of going down, the sun just faded into the atmospheric deck of opacity. It just faded away.
So that's what you're talking about, where it gets far enough away where it just kind of
it's
fizzles
light
out.
can't it's light can't push. So people say, how come I can't see Mount Everest? If the earth is flat, I should be able to see. Well, there's a lot of reasons you can't see. One is because nothing's big enough for where its angular size wouldn't get too small. But there's a spot in Aluja, France, a viewing spot where you look out over the ocean, and it's a famous spot because Mount Canigou is 175 miles away. But at 175 miles away, 2 days a year, you can see Mount Canigou. But Mount Canigou is 175 miles away. From that viewing height, using globe curvature math, the top of that mountain should be a mile below the horizon. But on 2 days a year, the sun, in between its migration between the tropics, lines up, and then you can see it backlights the mountains, and you can see it. And the very top of that mountain should be a mile below the curvature, but it's not. You can see it. It's there. It's not refraction. It's not gravity. Okay. It's there. We can see too far.
Mm-hmm. One question I have is, I know you just had the picture of the like the flat Earth with the sun and the moon going around in a circle.
Yep.
And so just one question I have is, what about eclipses? How do eclipses work in this sort of system?
Solar eclipses or lunar eclipses?
Let's start with solar eclipses.
So a solar eclipse is when the sun and the moon, it's when the earth, a solar eclipse is when the moon is in between the sun and the earth, and it blocks out the sun. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to be lined up perfectly for an eclipse to work. But there's a thing called the Selenian. I always pronounce it wrong. Don't shoot me, people. Where the observer, who's, you're the observer, you're always on the top of the ball. You see the sun and the moon both up in the sky above the horizons, and the eclipse starts before one of them goes below. That's impossible, right? And the other problem is the eclipse comes in from the top sometimes. If the earth was causing the eclipse, it should come in from the bottom, but it comes in from the top.
I think what you're talking about right now is a lunar eclipse.
That is a lunar eclipse. You're right. I'm dyslexic. I have dyslexia. It's actually called dyslexia.
Oh, okay, those are confusing, honestly.
All right. But we're going to do both anyway. So So the eclipse comes in from the top. What does this prove? What's causing the eclipse? I couldn't tell you. I have some theories, but I can tell you it's not the Earth, because scientifically, provably, it's not the Earth.
So you don't know what causes lunar eclipses? Nobody does.
Nobody knows exactly. I mean, they think that there's another dark body, whatever. The way the moon turns red is strange. But when you actually do a model with a ball casting a shadow on another ball, it doesn't give you the same thing that we actually see in the moon. The shadow comes in as an ellipse, spreads out, and then leaves as an ellipse. So
I see. It doesn't quite make the same.
It doesn't make the same pattern. So what's causing the lunar eclipse? It's very, very hard to say. I know this is an audio podcast, but I'm gonna show you guys a solar eclipse video. So during a solar eclipse, there's no one's ever seen the moon approach the sun, eclipse the sun, or exit the sun. Okay, did you know that?
Well, I've actually seen a solar eclipse.
No, you have, but you never saw the moon. You just saw the cutout of the sun. You see this black.
No, I saw the moon moving. I mean, we were there the whole time.
No, but you didn't see the moon moving. You saw the darkness of the sun, but you never saw the features of the moon. Nobody ever has. Nobody ever has.
I saw the moon when it was apart from the sun, go into the sun.
You didn't. No one's ever seen that. No, and I'm telling you, I'm telling you, you haven't. You have to go back and think about what you saw. So no one's ever seen the sun from when it goes new to So just like I'm showing you here. So I have the sun being projected into the sky, And let me just slow this down. It is normal. And so you don't ever see it. That's because it's behind the dome and it's being projected into our system, right? So am I playing the right video? So there was a hold on. Yeah, so that's what you see. What you see is on the paper towel. That is our sky screen, and you're imagining that you're seeing the moon, but that's not the video I actually wanted to show you. The second one is here. So there was an eclipse where somebody filmed this weird little thing next to the moon. First, on the right is the eclipse I filmed. That's what you see when you see an eclipse. On the left is the model eclipse that kind of look the same. But you're imagining that curve is the moon, but you can't see a moon. No one's ever seen the moon. So
when I saw a solar eclipse,
yeah,
I mean, we were there for days before it happened. We could see the moon, and what we saw on the day when it happened, we could see the moon apart from the sun. There were just how
you saw the moon apart from the sun. How did you see the moon? Because it's a new moon when it happens.
Well, but I mean,
an eclipse only happens when there's a new moon, and nobody has ever seen the new moon in less than 42 hours after it goes new. You have to go back, and you're gonna have to think about it. But during the eclipse, a lot of people think they see the moon. They're just seeing it. But let me show you this. So right next, so the bright spot on the left is the sun. It's being eclipsed, but the sun is blowing out the lens. But right next to the sun, there's like this little eclipsed sun. Like, what is that? Now, there's another one. One of them's a lens flare, the one that's moving around, but one of them's locked to the sun's position. And the sun, it was actually the same amount eclipsed as that little eclipse that's going on. You just can't tell because it's blown out. So what is that? And I came up with we'd have been looking into this. I'm like, what if it's the actual projector? So here is the eclipse video I showed you a little while ago, where we're projecting the sun and we're eclipsing it with a new moon, and it eclipses it. There's the source of the sun on the other side. So what I did is I made it the sky a little more transparent. I'm like, maybe that paper towel wasn't transparent enough. So here comes the eclipse again, and look, you see the little eclipse I have right there. It's the same thing. That's the projector through the screen. Compare that to the actual eclipse, and it looks exactly the same. So is that what's causing a solar eclipse? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I guess what is the body that's moving in front of the projector then that's causing the eclipse? Is that the moon?
Yeah, that would be the real moon. No idea what it is. The moon, the moon is the moon. Some people think that it's in charge of. It has to do with the delivery and removal of souls, and on the plane. I don't know. All of that stuff is beyond maybe what any of us can understand.
Sure. So that would be the real moon, this one that's above the dome and potentially gets in the way of the projector. But so then what's the one that we see that's going around? Is that an actual thing, or is that another projected body? Like, what is the moon that we kind of can see?
So just like the light, the projector of the sun is being projected into our sky, the moon is a light and it's being projected into our sky too. So when there's a new moon, there's nothing being projected. When there's a half moon, there's a half moon being projected. When there's a full moon, there's a full moon being projected. And that's what we see in the sky. And again, the sun and the moon don't act like physical objects. Just like if we tried to triangulate those mirror reflections of the sun, the triangulation wouldn't work because we're both looking at two things in two different places. And if you had a third person to triangulate it, the third person should make the triangulation even better, but it makes it worse because it's not a physical object. But if three of us were outside looking at a tree and we tried to triangulate it would work perfectly, and we could figure out exactly where that tree is. How far that tree is from us by doing good math, but you can't do it if we're all looking at three different trees.
I think I have a question. just to kind of keep it moving. I know I've listened to a few podcasts where we talk a little bit about NASA. What do you think about NASA? Is it real? Is it something that we're actively trying to get into space? What are your thoughts on that?
Or I think you had also talked about Elon Musk, Mitch.
Oh yeah. Because I was curious if NASA, if there is no space, if there's nothing outside the dome or whatever it is, there's no vacuum. I know Elon Musk has his own company with Tesla. Is he being supported by the government in that respect, where everything's kind of a deception, or how do you feel about that?
In my opinion, Elon Musk is MK Ultra, complete, total puppet. Think about this. He's the CEO of the largest solar power company in the world. He's the CEO of the largest electric car company of the world. He's the CEO of the largest tunneling company of the world. He's the CEO of the brain implant company in the world. He's the CEO of the company that took over NASA. Okay. This is an impossibility. None of this could happen. You can't have anybody to do all of that. It's just impossible. The smartest person in the world could not do that. SpaceX is just NASA's way of taking it to the private sector, so we can't do freedom of information requests to get their information. SpaceX admits that NASA has full access to everything they do. There's just another wing, another wing of the space program. The Japanese, the Indian, the Chinese, all of the space programs, they're all in it together. It's all just to deceive you, to make you think you live on a spinning ball. You know, they use different forms of fakery. Sometimes they launch miniature rockets. Sometimes they launch lighter than air vehicles, helium blimps, like the space shuttle. The external tank was a blimp. And sometimes they use CGI, like you guys are watching right now. And when they use CGI, lots of things happen. Lots of things go wrong. We've actually found the projectors. Like, what are these light projectors on there using Google Earth? We found light projectors, or in some of the, maybe it wasn't Google Earth. There was some video. And we're like, what are these? What are they lighting up? And we zoomed in. We were able to see the serial number. We looked it up, and it was a holographic projection company. So they're projecting holograms into the sky, just like they projected Tupac onto the stage. Okay, they're projecting holograms, right? And then if I showed you NASA faking the like anti-gravity on the space station once, would that be enough to make you realize we didn't go to the moon? Just once. So, you know, whenever they're on there, they're always flipping things around, flipping the microphone around, they're flipping their hats around.
Yeah, pencils, yeah.
Yeah. So in the background, this guy goes floating way by when these guys are flipping their hat and their stuff around, they're talking nonsense. We're doing science in science. They just say science. And this guy goes floating by. So I zoomed in, and you can see he's hanging from a harness on wires, right? You can see the whole thing. Okay.
That's that's weird.
Yeah. And they use what's called augmented reality, where they have either contact lenses or they're looking at a television screen and they're manipulating things in free space. They're not really there. So this guy that I'm showing you, he was flipping his hat around, and at one point he's supposed to hand it to his buddy, but he moves his hand. The guy thought he was passing it, and he puts it away, but he never grabbed the hat. So he moved. Watch, when he moves his right hand, right now. Bam! The guy thinks he's passing him the hat. He takes it and he puts it away.
Oh, okay. So the people in the videos do think they're in space, but
no. These guys are hanging from wires in a green screen room. These guys.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
The hat's not real.
No, the hat's not real, right? The things floating in the air are not real, right? And then they're always playing with kids. They're talking about kids, and look, there's nothing here, and all of a sudden there's a stuffed animal there, and she gets it. That's not real. The things that she's floating around aren't real. This is the balloon she's holding. The ball she's holding is real. It's filled with helium. Okay, but the thing, and it's called augmented reality. They can do that. You can use it in real time. They use it in movies. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it looks like a VR headset. I have one of those. Yeah. Like, you can definitely do that type of stuff.
Yeah, and the green screen technology is way beyond what people think even realize.
The consumer level, right?
Yeah, consumer level stuff is beyond what most can imagine. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're kind kind of running out of time a little bit here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think Mitch, did you? Because we usually like to end with some would you rather's. I don't know
Yeah,
if
go
you.
for it.
if
We
you
got a
do
couple
any of
minutes.
that
Go
kind of
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Dave, for joining us.
Yeah,
That was
absolutely.
really cool to see a lot of that stuff just from outside of the whole Google search realm. That was great. Let's see here.
I guess maybe real quick, is there what's the best way for people to try to get this not fake government pushed flat earth society information? Like, I mean, absolutely, probably going out and making your own conclusions is best, but is there a
So don't believe anything I say. You can spend 500 hours. If you had the fortitude to spend 500 hours, you probably get 3 hours worth of good stuff, right? And that's going to take you, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks to do. That's if you had the fortitude and you just didn't get discouraged from all the crap. They've resorted to the crap in the punch bowl technique, where there's so much crap about flat Earth online, you can't find any of the fruit. So I created the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's available on Google Play and iPhone. You need an Android 8.0 operating system or higher, or iPhone 6 or better. And it will show you, just take the daily app challenge, watch one video a day, every day for 2 weeks. Check out the frequently asked questions. Check out all the other resources on there. The app's $2.99. Just remember, a beer at a bar or a coffee from Starbucks, you're going to piss it away in 20 minutes.
Or a truly glass.
Yeah. And that's what you have for the rest of your life. Just if you're unsure about spending the $3 on it, just read the reviews. Right? And and that's the best way. It's the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. So
cool.
That's how you find it. And you can find it at the flatearthpodcast.com if you looking for a link, because sometimes they hide it on some Google. When you try to search for it, it's hard to find. It's by Blue Water Bay. Make sure it's by Blue Water Bay.
Okay.
Maybe let's try to get one would you rather in there.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'll give you guys one too.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Perfect.
Yeah. So mine is, and we can get through this pretty quick here, but would you rather know every conspiracy there is on Earth? So whether it be conspiracy theory, so whether it be like Denver airport type of stuff, whether it be round versus flat Earth, that kind of thing, but not be able to tell anyone? Or would you rather pick one theory that everyone believes, whether or not it's true? And I mean, if you want to think about it, Dave, I can go ahead and start. I think that I think the first one, being able to know every conspiracy theory but not be able to tell anyone.
Know the truth behind every conspiracy.
Yeah, so
theory.
The truth behind every conspiracy theory.
Know all of the truth.
Yeah,
and not be able to tell anybody. And not be able to tell anybody.
You have to keep it to yourself.
Or just know one truth and be able to tell people.
Yeah.
So is kill yourself an option?
That's awesome.
I would say no, but I think that for me personally, the first one would drive me insane. So I think I'd have to go with the no one. But I don't know what you guys think.
I think I'd go with the know all of them. It's just to have the knowledge. It's be so interesting.
I think you go crazy.
I go
really? Oh man.
So interesting. My question isn't that much different. My question, you ready? Did everybody answer? Are we good?
Let's get into it.
Would you rather live your life not knowing who you are, where you are, what you are, or the power of your mind, and being mixed with everybody like that? Or would you rather know who you are, where you are, and what you are, even if it meant that some people would think you're crazy?
Well, obviously, I would go for the second one. I mean, I'd rather know myself and know who I am. I mean, there's that quote, "Ignorance is bliss," right? Where I mean, a lot of people can live in ignorance and be happy, but
ignorance is lazy.
Ignorance is lazy. Yeah, I guess
lazy
so.
Bliss.
Yeah, lazy bliss. Yeah.
Here's the thing, guys. You guys were ignorant before you heard of me. I was ignorant too. Don't take it personally. You guys were ignorant to the idea of flat Earth before you got that phone call or got that email. But now you have a choice. You could either look into it or be willfully ignorant.
You've cursed us.
You were unknowingly ignorant. Now, if you don't look into it, you're going to be willfully ignorant.
That's true. Maybe we shouldn't have had you on originally.
It's a big mistake. It's like Morpheus with the red pill and the blue pill. You gave you the red pill, right? And now, now you have no choice.
Do with it what you will. Yeah.
Yeah. You could try.
Cool. If you don't mind,
good.
I had just one more would you rather, just really quick. I think it's an interesting one. Would you rather have the chance to actually go into space and see everything for real? Or would you rather be able to explore every area of Antarctica?
Space isn't real, so I can't answer that. Space
well, what if you had a chance to go just up, higher than?
I'd rather explore Antarctica.
I'd rather explore Antarctica.
That's what I was thinking too.
Antarctica, you could probably see what's going on out there. Versus you go up high. If I took a flat earther, let's say you can go up to 300,000 feet. If you took a flat earther up there and a glober up there, the flat earther would look down and see the flat earth, and a glober would look down there and see a sphere, because the way we see is we see in a circle, right? When we look into the distance, we see the same direction same distance in all directions, right? And so when you lay that down, we see in a circle, and then a glober will say, well, I see that curve. That's the curve of the earth. And I'm like, no, that's just the curve of the maximum length of your vision.
So it's all perception at that point.
Yeah. Like when you look out, you see the same distance in all directions. That's a sweeping circle. And then your brain tells you, oh, that's the programming tells you that's the globe.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'd probably go to Antarctica too, honestly. I think that one is the biggest thing that's tipping me over the edge, is why there's just not much information about it. That kind of makes me angry.
And why is it off limits and so severely off limits? And why do all of our dignitaries go down there on weird times and stuff? Like John Kerry went down on election day 2 elections ago, right? That was weird. So very weird. And the other thing is the North Pole. We've all been trained that that's cold, dark, desolate, and freezing, but there could be a paradise there. That could be where all of this stuff is coming from. Maybe the sun and moon that we see are literally projected from the inner earth from there. I don't know. We're not allowed to go there.
Yeah.
Well, I think I would choose to go up just to see what's up there.
Yeah.
And into what I think is space.
If I could get past whatever this veil is, I think I'd go up there. But otherwise, I'll go Antarctica.
Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for choosing to join us tonight. I think that was really cool. I think our fans are really going to enjoy it too. Did you have any closing thoughts that you wanted to say, Dave, before we took off and kind of ended it there?
Yeah, belief is the enemy of knowing. You guys know where I live?
No.
Did I tell you?
I don't think so. No.
I don't know.
I thought I told you I live in Connecticut. My question is, do I really live in Connecticut? Do you know if I live in Connecticut? And the answer is, it's easy to believe. You can just go, drink some beers, take a nap, whatever. You want to know something, it takes time and effort and critical thought. And we're trained not to think for ourselves. We're trained to memorize and regurgitate. So belief is the enemy of knowing. You believe you live on a ball, but you don't know why, right? To know, you have to actually check. And once you check, you can't unsee it. So, and also consensus is not science, right? Just because everybody believes something doesn't make it true. So there's millions and millions and millions of people waking up to flat earth, and the shape of the earth doesn't matter. It's the lie that matters. And right now this world is going into tyranny. You guys are fucked. Okay, just so you know, right? Your freedoms are gone. You're never going to know what we knew growing up. And that's if we allow them to get away with this. But if somehow we're able to get our freedoms back, how long can we hold on to it if we don't know where we are? If our heads are in a prison, and that's the globe, right? And other people will be here that know the truth of this world, know that your thoughts create your reality, know that nobody can break your free will. Nobody can break your free will. Nobody can steal from you. It's not allowed. Okay. And they know this. They know this law, this karmic law. So they only can trick you into giving away your God-given free will. So once you wake up to the flat earth, you literally disconnect from the matrix. you guys are familiar with the documentary with Keanu Reeves, The Matrix,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at the beginning, Neo, his soul knows the truth of the world, but his head is trapped in the Matrix. He doesn't know where he is, who he is, what he is. And then he got unplugged from the Matrix. By the end of the movie, he figures out the power of his own mind and he takes back his life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be, the Neo at the beginning of the Matrix or the Neo at the end of the Matrix?
That's a good would you rather. I'd be Neo at the end.
Yeah.
Always the end.
Yeah. So again, 6 years ago, it took a lot of courage to become a flat earther because, you know, it was insane. But now you mention flat earth to somebody, they're like, oh, really? What's up with that? You know, except the people that have already lost control of their souls. They're just little demons and there's nothing you can do to help them. So you guys seem intelligent. You guys seem like you have a little bit of courage. You guys seem like you might want a future. So I encourage you to not comply with the bullshit and take back your power.
Okay. I can agree with that one. Definitely.
Yeah.
Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, the flatearthpodcast.com, Flat Earth Podcast,
Cool.
Flat Earth Podcast Instagram. And that's it. So that's where you find me. And my YouTube channel, the initials for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, just DITRH. Good short videos right there. And tell your friends.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you.
Just want to shout out, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok at Speak Truly. Be sure to follow Dave on the Flat Earth Podcast Instagram, and then get that app as well. And just thank you so much, Dave, for joining us tonight. It's a lot of fun. I'd love to have you on maybe in the future about some other theories to talk about, because we definitely have some stuff to touch on too. We live in Nevada, so Area 51 is a big one as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, just do aliens come from 25 trillion miles away and crash in Nevada, or do they maybe come from just a couple thousand miles away and crash in Nevada? All right,
think about it until our next episode.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys.
Cool.
See ya.
All right.
Thank you again.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.